Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you well. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you perfectly. Right. So, apologies if someone was there and they went through a few loops of the 30-second countdown. I have to start it early so that I can get it live on LinkedIn, but then that means the live starts too early. So, I put it on loop and then I've got to take it off loop.
But then
Which is
who doesn't like the 30-second countdown? Isn't it what everyone here is for?
I'm sure they've come just to see the 30-second countdown. I do need to change that, actually. It's a bit boring now. I'm fed up with it. Maybe I'll do a 60-second or a 90-second countdown, and then I won't have to worry about the loop. Right, folks. So we've got Girish from the US. So Girish, in that I know you're here and I know your name, can you just confirm that you can actually hear me and Yevgeny?
Yes,
Whilst
please.
we wait for hopefully a few more folks to rock up. I know it's getting towards the holiday season and things are quietening down a little bit, but hopefully we'll have one or two visitors. Yes, Girish can hear us. That is excellent. Okay, so whilst we wait, Yevgeny, because it always takes a few minutes for people to rock up, shall we provide Girish and a few other people, because we don't know who they are, a bit of an intro into who we are? Oh, great. Brandy's there from, gosh, what an awesome surname, Brandy Lovings. What a great name. Oh, that's
Super.
so cool. I wish I had that name. That's so cool. Joined us from LinkedIn. So that then confirms that LinkedIn is working okay as well. All right. So shall we introduce ourselves, Yevgeny?
Yes.
Is it
Yes.
my
Do you want to
turn
go
this
first this
week?
time? Yes,
Yes,
please.
so
Your
it's my
turn.
turn this week. Okay. So hello, folks. I am Gigi, and to my left is Yevgeny. We are the co-founders of Day One Careers. We are, if you don't already know, which I'm sure you do at this point, we run a business where we help prospective Amazonians prepare for their Amazon interview. Obviously, you've seen all of our amazing free content on YouTube, but we also do one-to-one coaching sessions, which I'm sure, again, he's probably just come off of because he literally just arrived. And also we have some incredible courses, digital courses we also make available to candidates. A little bit of our history. Both Yevgeny and I are ex-Amazonians, and in our time at Amazon, as you probably realize, we did a lot of interviewing, and I myself specifically was a bar raiser, which, if you don't already know, bar raisers make up about 5% of the Amazon population. They're basically highly trained specialist interviewers who manage or facilitate the debrief, which is where the decision is actually made to hire a candidate or not. Bar raiser has the final decision-making authority. So I interviewed and bar raised on hundreds of different panels all across the different kind of skill sets and all across different Amazon businesses. And Yevgeny, in his role as a senior leader, also did extensive interviewing. We kind of, in our time at Amazon, interviewing, picked up on certain cues from different candidates in terms of their understanding of the interview process. And we realized that there was a need for a better understanding of how to interview at Amazon. Lots of candidates we saw failing who probably shouldn't have failed, but they simply did not understand how best to articulate the leadership principles and their particular story. Yevgeny and I didn't know each other, but independently we set off on our own paths to try and address this. I created a YouTube channel. Yevgeny set up a website, created tons of amazing blog content, etc. At some point we met and we decided we'd be better off together, joining forces, and that's when we created Day One Careers. And our agenda is exactly that, to help you be successful in the crazy and somewhat challenging process that is the Amazon interview process. So that's who we are. Yevgeny, do you want to talk to the folks about how this whole session is going to work?
Yes. So, folks, as Gigi said, we're, or maybe she didn't say that, but basically, this show exists for you guys to ask us questions. and for us to answer your questions. Questions about behavioral interviews at Amazon. Now, a couple of housekeeping rules. So just try to keep your questions to the topic of behavioral interviews. So everything that has to do with the Amazon's peculiar culture as encapsulated in the glorious 16 leadership principles. If you ask us questions about functional assessments, whether it's coding, whiteboarding, anything that has to do with any other functional assessment specifically tailored to the function that you're interviewing with. Unfortunately, with the exception of some commonplace sort of knowledge stuff about whiteboarding, I think we will have to refer you to look for other sources because this is not our expertise. And on the other hand, if you ask us a question that is very, very generic, such as, hey guys, I've got an interview coming up in 3 days. Any tips? We'll have to refer you to our YouTube channel because that channel has a lot of overall general tips. And in addition to our blog as well, which also has plenty of general Amazon interview tips. So I would say try to find a golden middle. Do ask us questions, any questions about behavioral interviews at Amazon, and we'll do our best to answer them. Anything you'd add, Gigi?
Only just to say, folks, just start bashing out your questions. Within the parameters of which Yevgeny just described, there are no bad or silly questions. So please do get banging those questions down. If you have a long question and it's like a multi-parter, just make sure we understand it's a multi-parter and just put kind of one of two or whatever it might be. All right, so why don't we just get started and get looking down the list here? I'll say hello to some people whilst I make my way down the list to buy myself a bit more time, if I'm honest with you all. So we've got Girish, who's from the US. Where specifically in the US, Girish? It's a big place, the US. Tell us where you are. Got Brandy Lovings, and I'm still loving that surname. I'm super jealous.
You're loving the Lovings.
I'm loving the Loving. It's just so much better than any surname I've ever held in my life. I mean, you've only ever held one, so you're a little bit of a disadvantage to me, but I've had a couple. Girish has got his loop tomorrow at 11 a.m. EST. We wish you the very best of luck.
Best of luck, Girish.
We've got Dave from the US as well. So, Dave, do you and Girish know each other? Boom, boom.
Good one.
My husband is Irish.
Burn.
Yeah, my husband's Irish, and whenever he meets anybody and says he's Irish and they know someone in Ireland, they always ask him, do you know XXX, who's also Irish? My husband's like,
yes. They must also ask him about that pot of gold as well.
Well, if I knew where that pot of gold is, trust me, I would not be here doing this live with you. Anyway, so we've got Joey from Houston, Texas. Awesome, Joey. Welcome. Okay, and Ranjit's arrived from India. It's quite late in India. It should be like 9:45 or 10:30, something like that in India now. It's quite late, Ranjit. Thank you for taking the time to join us. You've got a phone screen next week for an L6 non-tech PM role in India. Wishing you the very best of luck with that.
Yeah, best of luck.
Okay, so let's do this question here from Preet.
I think I can recognize Preet in our community, actually. I might.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Preet, do you want to tell us, do you want to reply in the comments if you've actually joined our community or not? See if you can validate my hypothesis that we've seen you in our community.
Sometimes we recognize names. Okay, yeah. So whilst you're doing that, Preet, I'm just going to pop your question up and we will answer your question. And whilst we're answering Preet's question, please do, folks, bash down some more questions for us. Otherwise, I was going to say I could go and sort out the chicken, but there's no chicken in the oven today, Yevgeny. You'd be sorry to hear.
No, not today. No, there usually is. They usually do a roast on that Tuesday evenings.
No chicken in the oven. It's carbonara tonight. Mr. G is responsible for dinner tonight. Right. So Preet would like to know, is it possible a panel member asks a behavioral question from a particular job experience? So I think I understand what you're asking, Preet. I'm just going to clarify with Yevgeny, see if he thinks the same. So I think Preet is asking us if an interviewer would ever look at Preet's resume and say, Can you tell me about a time when you were working for, or let's pretend it's me, when you were working for British Telecom as the director of marketing solutions, when you did X, Y, and Z? Is that your interpretation of what Preet is saying?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's the request to focus the response by drawing on a particular experience.
Yes. Okay. In which case, no, is the answer to that, Preet. It's simply not the way behavioral interviewing works. And I would say that because it makes it very, very specific in terms of the question. So it's already quite challenging to come up with an example for a behavioral question because they unto themselves can be quite specific. Tell me about a time where you realized a colleague was having difficulty and you decided to step in. That's quite specific. If you then narrow that down further and say, Gigi, tell me about a time when you were working at BT as the director of marketing solutions and you found a colleague who was having trouble and you decided to step in, you'd be, well, that didn't happen when I was at marketing solutions, but it did happen when I was in another role. So your interviewer doesn't really care where you were, what job you were in when that particular incident happened. What they care about is the behaviors that you demonstrated when that incident happens. And therefore, that incident can happen in any role that you did. Now, alternatively, if your interviewer actually wants to understand some functional aspect of your skill set, it might be that they choose a particular job that you would do or a particular role that you were in at the time. If you've maybe noted on your resume that you happen to execute that skill whilst in that job, they might choose that as a way into testing your functional skills. But that certainly wouldn't happen from a behavioral question point of view. Anything you'd add, Yevgeny?
Nothing material. Like we've had, I think, since we started operating together, I can recall maybe one or two people who reported that the interviewer deviated somehow from the standard behavioral interview question script and tried to scoop up a professional context together with it. But in 99.9% of cases, it's literally all the same.
Okay, cool. All right, let's move on. Right, before you pick another question, Pocono, PA. Where's PA? What state would PA be?
Pennsylvania. It's a guess.
Okay. We're guessing. I mean,
I don't know
obviously,
any other states that start with a P.
PA.
Let's try.
No. I was trying to think of, can I think of any? But okay. I've never heard of Pocono. I'm going to Google Maps it. I'm going to
There
find
you
you, Girish. Google Maps. Right. Let's move on then.
All right, let's move on. Right, cool. So, okay, so here's a question here. So so questions from Rima, and the question is the Chime interview, will they touch on all leadership principles? They've sent me these as part of the interview. Well, it depends what Chime interview it is, because all interviews are on Chime. So if it is a phone interview or a single interview without a panel, then it's highly unlikely that they'll be able to touch on all of the leadership principles. They'll most likely interview you on probably one, because also in the phone interview, they'll have to fit things like why Amazon, tell me about yourself, and anything else that they want to ask you. And then when you hopefully transition to the panel style interviewing, or what Amazon calls the loop, then if it is a purely behavioral interview, typically they'll interview you on 2 leadership principles per interview. So just take 2 leadership principles per interview, multiply them by the number of interviews that you have in your loop, and then you will get the total number of leadership principles that you can expect to be interviewed during your panel. So that's it for me. Anything you'd add, Gigi?
No, nothing to add other than to say you were correct. Pocono is in Pennsylvania. Very pretty if you look at the pictures on Google
Oh, really?
Maps.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna Google it now.
looks beautiful. Sorry, everyone. Just part of a geography education for us Europeans. Right, okay. Let's move on then. Sorry, I'm still looking. Okay. Here we go from Girish. If you have managed team as a leader for several years and you have initiated by inventing and simplifying, but you delegated the work, how do you answer the behavioral question with I without saying we? Okay. So how you would do this, and I say this to, oh, is it my turn or your turn, Evgeny?
It's your
No, it's
turn.
my turn. Sorry, I've totally lost track of everything. I'm sorry. I was totally distracted by the beautiful mountains of Pocono, which has a 5-star rating, by the way, on Google Maps. We have to go now. Next work trip, Evgeny, to Pocono. So the way I recommend everybody does this, regardless of whether you're a leader or whether you're a team member, if you're doing something part of a we, quite often you have to say we because it would not be feasible that you could claim ownership of every single aspect of this thing. So my guidance is to say, we did something. My contribution to that was Y. So we did X. My contribution was Y. So you, as the team leader and telling the story, if you came up with the idea, the invent, then make sure the interviewer knows the problem that you were aiming to solve, the idea that you came up with, what other ideas that you maybe considered and discarded, talking specifically about the idea that you came up with, either kind of the simplicity of that solution. If the idea of yours was an initial idea and then you sent other people off to flesh it out and actually operationalize it, then you'll have to let the interviewer know how you contributed to that final development of the solution and the final operationalization of the solution. So that little pattern that I explained of we did X, my contribution was Y, becomes very helpful because at every single step of that inception through to execution, if we as a team did something, you can then clearly articulate what your particular contribution to that group effort was. Would you add anything, Evgeny?
I would just add, literally on top of what you said, don't feel shy about being a manager and sharing the managerial steps that you took. For example, if you were auditing and reviewing the proposals that the group brought to you when they brainstormed, that's perfectly fine because that is you doing the managerial job. If you mentored someone in the process as well, mention that too. It's perfectly fine, and it would be relatively similar to what you would be doing as a manager at Amazon, give or take. That's all.
Cool.
Cool. So it's my turn, I guess. So we have, there you go. We've got someone from Manchester here. Actually, there you go. How do you pronounce it?
I would go for Kian personally.
It's Kian, right? Yeah.
Yes, that's what I'd go
all right,
for.
Kian. Right. So I have been invited to conduct a writing exercise before a 5-person loop. I have read about the 2 preset topics for the writing exercise. Any truth to this? Yes, it's true. That's basically the 2 questions that you get. So one of them is from Invent and Simplify. And Gigi, correct me if I'm wrong. The other one is from I Write a Lot about making a judgment call. Test me in this. Am I correct? Or have I missed one?
Yes, no, you have. That's right. So the Invent and Simplify one is tell me about the most innovative thing that you have done. And the I Write a Lot is tell me about a time where you had to make a judgment when you didn't have the necessary data.
There you go. And so the point of the writing exercise is to write. It's a test of your writing, the clarity, the structure, whether you have a point to make. And that's pretty much it. So don't treat it as a behavioral interview. It is just what it says in the tin. It's a writing test. That's all I would say. Anything you'd add?
No, other than we have a nice video about it on the YouTube channel. If you want to go and check out that video, it gives you some recommendations as to how to approach the writing sample. Okay. Oh, Kian's got another question for us as well.
There's one question before Kian, which I can answer very quickly.
Shoot.
So this means, I believe this means Amazon Fresh. F3.
Oh, yes. Yes,
No,
it does.
it's a merger. It's a merger of a few different projects, which there used to be, oh gosh, Prime. There used to be Prime Now. Then they merged under Amazon Fresh. Some business got folded. So anyway, this is essentially this is the Fresh business.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I was looking at that thinking, but yes, you're absolutely right. Okay, should we just... Kian's question is relatively simple as well. Senior in the title, is there any way to tell the role level? Yeah, that's an L6. So if you've got any job title that basically says senior something manager, it's going to be an L6. So for the broader context, everyone, there's a standard Amazon nomenclature for job titles. Not every single role will align to this. So there are almost more exceptions than there are the rule now. It used to be very much the rule, but now there are more exceptions than the rule. However, the old rule would have been a something manager would be an L5, a senior something manager would be an L6, and a senior manager something would be an L7. So, Kian, I don't know what particular role follows that senior, but yes, I would say it's an L6.
Looks like an L6.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So we've got, I'm going to say this is Jimena, right? But please correct me if I'm wrong. I took 6 months of Spanish in college, and it's been ages ago, but I believe it's Jimena, isn't it? Not Ximena or Zimena.
No, I don't know.
Because the name Javier, I think, is spelled with an X, right? In the beginning.
Because I thought "ha" was a J.
Also J. Anyway, correct us, please. So, we like to learn about these things, and I'd like to educate myself. Anyway, but let's get to a question. Hopefully, I can flaunt my smarts here a bit better than I've just done. I got my final interview feedback, and my outcome was the uncommon one: inclined and positive feedback, but no role available. Someone was ahead of me in the process. Okay, there must be a part 2 of this. Yes, there you go. I will work with the recruiter to find another position available. I wanted to ask, do these plans actually work based on your experience? Chances to success, basically. Thanks for the great content. I'm not sure what plans you specifically refer to here. So first of all, it is not the most common outcome, but it actually is a lot more common than you might think. So it does happen, and we've got folks in our community who do report on inclined but no offer.
So the reason why she's saying it's uncommon is because of the video that I did of the 3 possible outcomes on the YouTube channel. And I did that video about 2.5 years ago. And 2.5 years
before
ago,
all the layoffs and all that
yeah,
stuff.
exactly. 2.5 years ago, it was uncommon, but I think now it's become increasingly common. But I just wanted to clarify that so that no one thinks I'm lying or misrepresenting information.
No, you're absolutely right. No, we've had all sorts of different scenarios, including this one, but this one is, we do see it from time to time. Yes, bittersweet a bittersweet outcome for sure. And I think your question was, how do these plans actually work based on your experience? Plan to find you another role. I mean, candidates, we don't have any statistics, and I don't think, I never saw any statistics at Amazon based on what we see in our community. Sometimes it works out. Sometimes it takes so much time that we don't hear from the candidates again. And sometimes, and this is actually what I've seen and what I've cashed, is while you're waiting for Amazon to find you a role, Meta or Google comes knocking, or you apply to another role. And we've seen candidates telling us, actually, Amazon took it a bit too long. I ended up accepting a role at this other company, but still it was great interviewing with Amazon, and maybe one day I'm going to come back. So it literally works in different ways. When they do say that they want to try and find you a role, they're not lying, because if they have a candidate that's been pre-cleared for Amazon in terms of your cultural fit, which is what it is, given how difficult it is for Amazon to source candidates in general, it's in their best interest to find you a role. However, whether there is a role or not, that really literally depends on what your skill set is, what roles you're applying to, and what's available. So all I can say is good luck. Just persevere. Don't drop it. And if there is something similar based on your experience, they will do their best to find you a role. Anything you'd add, Gigi?
Just be proactive. Don't just wait for your recruiter to find something. Head back to the website, see if there's something you can find that appeals to you. Let your recruiter know that you found this other role that you're interested in, and then they can connect you with the recruiter for that role, because they won't be responsible for that role. They'd have to hand you off to another recruiter. But yeah, be proactive, take ownership of the situation. Don't be passive and wait for your recruiter, who's probably got a million other things that they're trying to do as well.
Yes, help them out for sure.
Okie dokie. So let's pull this one up from Preet. Generally, how many behavioral questions per LP to expect in a 45-minute interview? Oh, I love this question, Evgeny. So
yes.
This is a little bit of a how long is a piece of string question, because there are a lot of variables that influence how many questions you get through in a 45-minute interview. The main influencing variable from a weighted contribution perspective is you and how long your answers are. The more detailed and specific your answer, the more time it will take to share that answer. And therefore, the fewer questions your interviewer is going to have time to ask you. If you offer very short answers that are only 30 seconds to a minute long, your interviewer is going to have plenty of time to ask you a lot of questions. Now, obviously, they will try and do follow-up questions to draw out some detail if you happen to, hopefully not, but if you happen to give an answer that's only a minute long. But that's the major factor that influences how many questions. Another factor that's going to influence how many questions is also the preference of your interviewer. Some interviewers will prefer to ask more questions. Some interviewers will prefer to ask less questions. They will try and drive their agenda by either asking you lots of follow-up questions so they don't have to ask you more questions, or by potentially trying to encourage you to move faster through your stories. That said, in my experience, there's a third one that I should have mentioned, which is your seniority. So the more senior you are, the more complicated your stories tend to be, and therefore the more time it takes to tell them, which is a little bit the same as the first one, but it is very much driven by your seniority. In my experience, it's going to run somewhere between 2 questions to 5 questions. I've been on panels, debriefs with with interviewers who've been interviewing very junior candidates, kind of L4s, L5s, and you get through a lot of questions with L4s and L5s because they're not that complex, because they're quite junior. So you can find yourself asking someone 4 or 5 questions in 45 minutes. Equally, I've been on debriefs where an interviewer has only got through 1 question in 45 minutes because it was a particularly complex and interesting story that individual was telling. That individual was quite senior, and therefore they managed to, I don't know how, because I don't think I could, but managed to fill a full 45 minutes with 1 question. So somewhere between 1 and 5, I think, is the answer. But based on what I've just said, hopefully, Preet, you can get a sense of kind of how senior am I, how long are my stories when I just kind of speak them myself and practice them, and then effectively divide that number by 35, because assume 5 minutes for hellos and 5 minutes for questions at the end, which takes you down to about 35 minutes. Shall I pop Preet back in?
Yes, please. And apparently, X is indeed pronounced as a J, which is uh,
Excellent.
we're getting better at this. We're getting better at this. Okay, fine.
Slowly.
Slowly, very slowly, yes. Okay, cool. So, Girish again. Also, can you share the LPs that you'll be addressing in the example you're going to share before answering the question? Um, I wouldn't do it because what Amazon is looking for is not whether you know what LPs you're going to be sharing, but the actual behaviors. So I just answer the question. Also, that will defocus you from actually answering the question. And we, if you've watched any of our guidance, we spend a lot of time trying to give you tips and techniques so that you focus your brain on actually answering the question that is being asked. But I don't know. Gigi, do you have a different point of view on
No,
this?
I agree. I wouldn't do it. Your interviewer understands the leadership principles. You don't need to tell them what leadership principles you're going to be focusing on. They understand them. If your narrative actually does include those leadership principles, they'll know it because they know them better than you. So don't waste your time saying it, and don't insult their intelligence by assuming you need to tell them you're going to do it.
Cool. You want to pick the next one?
Sure thing. There we go. Hey, Mill. As a software engineer, will it hurt my chances if I apply to all of the software engineer roles that are advertised? Should I tailor my CV for each specific role? Okay, so two-parter. So let's deal with it in two parts. Will it hurt your chances if you apply for lots of software development engineering roles? No, not at all. Amazon knows that you're a software development engineer. That's what you're interested in. That's your skill set. They don't really expect you to be specifically interested in doing software engineering for the People Engine or software engineering for Amazon Music. You're a software engineer, and therefore it's absolutely fine to apply for as many software engineering roles as you like. They will not think ill of that at all. If you had asked me, is it okay to apply for software engineering roles as well as QA roles, as well as acoustics engineer, as well as technical product manager roles, I would have a different answer to you. Because in that case, I would say, no, you need to focus on a particular job family. But you didn't ask me that, so that's good. You're fine. Apply for as many software engineering roles as you like. Should you tailor your CV for all our American friends? This is a resume as well. We call it a CV here in Europe. It's the same thing for us. It's an interchangeable word for each specific role. No, do not do that. And the reason why you should not do that is the Amazon ATS, which is called Hire, simply overwrites your CV/resume every time you send in a new version of it in applying for a new role. So it is a waste of time to update it for every role because the system does not hold 25 different versions of your resume/CV. The system knows it's you and consolidates everything into a single record, a single identity, and simply keeps updating your resume every time you send in a new one. So no, do not bother doing that. Okay, let's put Mill back into.
And shall we do a little intermission?
Oh, is it intermission time already? All
I
right.
think it is.
I keep saying, do you know what? I had a look at Jib Jab the other day and thought, right, I need to sign up. It's now only, I used to have to pay an annual fee, but it's now only $3 a month. So
Ooh,
I've got
that's
no
pretty cool.
excuse. I've got no excuse. So over the holiday season, I'll put some effort in and create some new Jib Jabs. But folks, this is the point where we ask you for something in return. In the main, we ask nothing of the users of our channel, and it's all give, 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 give. But we have a small little thing that we need back from you. And what we need back from you is engagement in our channel. What does engagement mean, Gigi? I hear you say. Well, engagement is you either giving something a thumbs up or writing a little comment on the bottom of our videos. So anytime you watch any of our content, please, please, please give us a thumbs up or write a comment. What that does is tell the algorithm that it has picked the right person to surface this content to, and they like the content, which means the algorithm will go, yay, Day One Careers channel is excellent. We need to surface it more to people like this individual. And it will lift us up in the rankings in terms of the algorithms. I'm sure most of you have realized that there is a ton of dreadful and very irritating, in some cases, content out there about Amazon interview that isn't created by people that have ever worked at Amazon, and certainly not worked at Amazon at our level. So if you can get our content promoted above that, you're doing yourself and all of those other people out there looking for advice on Amazon interview a huge favor. So with that in mind, we're going to ask you for the next 10 seconds or so to give this particular stream a bit of a thumbs up. And whilst you do that, we have some light entertainment for you folks. It might be a little bit loud. I say this every time. So you might just want to pop your headphones a little bit off your ear whilst you give us a thumbs up. But here is a brief interlude of musical joy whilst you give us a thumbs up. Which one will I use? Live the stream. Live the stream. Live the stream. There you go. If you've ever wondered what I would look like as a man with an afro from the 1960s, you've just seen it.
Saturday Night Fever. Right.
Certainly feverish anyway. Right, shoot. Pick the next one, Yevgeny.
Yes, let's do that. So, right, there's a question here from Ines, but I think she clarified it slightly down here. It's a long one, big one. So I'm just going to read it now. I'm going to pop it back out. So during the last Amazon recruiting event I assisted to, I was told Amazon is prioritizing recruiting to people that live near one of the site locations. However, I still can see some positions posted as remote. How much truth is on that? Is it worth to apply to a remote position when we are not located at the site? So Gigi, I think both you and I need to try and answer this one. So I don't know. I don't have the facts about whether when it says remote, then it's 100% remote, or if it's 70% remote. I can tell you for a fact that at the time, let's say before the pandemic, right? And this is where I guess Amazon operated I'm just going to say a normal kind of office life, which essentially what it meant is if it made sense for a role to be remote and the person who called the shots on whether the role could be made remote would have been either the head of the function or the director of the org, depending on the team and the organization, then the role would be remote. So remote used to mean remote. Obviously, pandemic completely put everything into a haywire state. And we know for a fact that Amazon is very keen to get folks to work a certain number of days from the office. I would still assume that there might be some roles that are still remote because there is no need for them to be attached to a particular location. But I actually don't know whether that would be the case with every single role that says remote. That being said, there's absolutely no harm for you to ask the recruiter or anyone who is part of that team and see, look, is this role really remote, or am I attached to a particular Amazon HQ? What do you think, Gigi? Do you have any information that I don't have?
No, I don't. I would have suggested the same thing. Apply, and then once you actually speak to a human being, confirm with them whether it is in fact remote or not. No harm.
Cool.
Okay. Right, so let me just pick this one then. My recruiter told me that the program manager role for which he's looking at me is data analytics heavy. When I told him it's not my strength, was told not to worry about it. There's other roles he has. Oh, this must be a two-parter.
I can't find the second part.
I can't find the second part. Is there a question associated with that, RS? If you have a question associated with that statement, just pop it down below and we'll come across it a little bit later. Okay. Okay. Kian, right, you've updated this CV for a new application, but you've received an interview from your initial application, different job family, and would like the interviewer to consider the CV from the tailored in the initial role. Hang on. I've updated the CV for a new application, but have received an interview for your initial application. Okay. The point of a CV is to get you to the interview. So I don't think it matters too much that you've submitted a new resume with a new role in mind, because you've made it to the interview from the first application. So the resume has done its job. It's done. So I don't really think that you need the interviewer for the original application to have your resume from CV, from the original application. Just don't worry about it. Focus on the actual interview itself. CV is done and dusted now. It's done its job. But there's a lesson here, folks, which is if you listen to generic advice on the internet, it's generic and it doesn't necessarily always apply. So in this instance, Kian, I assume you were listening to the generic advice on the web that says that you should tailor your resume, CV, for every single role. That is true, but it doesn't consider the fact that those different roles may be in the same company. Most companies will have a centralized ATS, which will consolidate people's applications into a single profile. There's no need to have 7 different resumes on a single profile. So most large corporates will only hold one resume for one individual, even if they've got 15 different applications. So just once again, folks, think about who you're getting your advice from and how you're applying that advice in a specific context. Okay, moving on.
Yes. So here is, I'm just gonna put gears back on. If I'm successful and receive a call a week from tomorrow that I was selected, do you provide salary negotiation strategies? Yes, we do. We have a course that is called Amazon Salary Negotiation Whiz, and the name is a little bit intentionally misleading, because actually it goes not just into salary, but into your total compensation. But obviously, a lot of folks learn that Amazon operates on a total compensation level and not just on a salary level when they start negotiating. That's why we called it Amazon Salary Negotiation Whiz. But yes, we do plenty of strategies to negotiate your salary. Some of them are just, I'm going to say, tried and tested generic salary negotiation strategies that will work for any business. And then you will also learn plenty of insights about how the decision-making process works inside Amazon. So yes, let's hope you get that role. And if you do get an offer, you know where to come back for help further on.
We hope you do get that offer.
Yes, do get that offer.
Okay, so I'm going to pick this one from RS. Will the initial phone screen be a dive into my resume or LP-based behavioral questions? It could be either, RS. Amazon allows quite a lot of flexibility to its teams around how they structure their interview process. So there are some very firm kind of frameworks, if you like: functional questions, behavioral questions, loop, early rounds, online assessment. These things exist, that teams can, to quite a large degree, be flexible about how they use those particular stages or points in time. So some teams will choose to focus their early interviews 100% on functional to make sure that you absolutely know how to do the job. Some teams will choose to focus that first round on behavioral, because a lot of what they need to know from a functional perspective can be gleaned from people's behavioral answers. And other teams will intentionally mix functional and behavioral. Your question was around a dive into your resume. some people would specifically look at your resume and say, oh, I see you worked here. Tell me about this particular role. Or God forbid, they might also go, walk me through your resume, which is just horrible. And no one teaches anyone to do that in Amazon. But nonetheless, sometimes people go rogue. More likely, they might ask you about specific projects from a functional point of view. So can you tell me about a project where you did this? Or can you tell me about a project that you're particularly proud of? So anything is possible. I think the least likely version is someone says, please just walk me through your resume, because quite frankly, that's a complete waste of everybody's time because it's written on a piece of paper in front of them. However, that is within the realms of possibility, and then anything in between. Let me pop RS back in.
All right. So there is the question. I'm gonna say it's from Angel. Angel, tell me if I pronounce your name correctly. See if I can continue my streak of not butchering people's names. Right. So hi Gigi. If I was rejected in one application, I can apply. Can I apply for another role, or was I blocked in the system? So, first of all, with regards to being quote unquote blocked in the system, it doesn't happen as often as you might assume that it does. And, when you actually work in Amazon and you kind of go through the hiring cycle, there is no option that says block in the system. I'm not going to go into details of what that actually is, but all I will say to you is this. Sometimes when you apply for a role and you're unsuccessful, that team will impose what's called a cooling off period, which means it's a period of time during which they essentially you would not be advised to apply for roles. So you need to wait. Sometimes it will not physically prevent you from applying to other roles. Sometimes it will. So, for example, you would be applying for roles and your application status will be immediately flipping to no longer under consideration. So, the way to know if there is a cooling off period is to ask the team that interviewed you. Just ask them if you can apply for other roles or if there is a cooling off period. If there is a cooling off period, they will usually advise that you have one. If they didn't advise you that you have one, and if you don't have any reason to believe that something horrible went into that interview, if it was just a normal interview and you were simply unsuccessful, then I would say you have no reason to assume that there's any specific blocks that are sitting against your profile, and you should be able to apply as you would. Just make sure you apply to roles that are relevant to your profile and don't apply randomly. That's the only thing that I would recommend. Anything you'd add, Gigi?
Nope, nothing. Perfect. Okay. Oh, we have the second part from RS here. So do you want to put Angel back?
Yep.
And I'll bring RS. So do I need to be worried about being asked questions on data analytics role and being rejected for everything, as it's my weak part anyway? Well, I guess I would say, if you've already told the recruiter that it's not an area that you're strong in, that they wouldn't bother putting you forward for roles that require strength in that. That's just a waste of everybody's time. The recruiter's goal is to fill the role and fill the role as quickly as possible. They will have performance metrics on time to fill as well as percentage of roles filled. I'm trying to move my thing and I've forgotten I've got the microphone here. So I can't guarantee you anything, but I would suspect not. If you've told them that it's not your area of strength, then it would be foolish of them to put you in for a role where it's a critical skill, would be my view anyway. Okay.
Yep, I agree. Yeah. So next one. Important. Does phone interview include any case study, or is it just normal behavioral questions? I've got an interview coming up shortly. So Gigi has already covered the different scenarios that can be in during the phone interview, and with regards to case studies, so theoretically, yes, they can. For example, one of the teams that I've worked in, we would ask some sort of not full case kind of business case questions, but we would, I don't know, we would ask things like, how would you price a particular product, just to see how kind of your functional marketing sort of skills work and your marketing brain works. So technically speaking, there's nothing that's precluding the team from throwing something like that at you during the phone screen. However, in cases where folks had to present full-blown case studies, like for example in user experience roles, sometimes you have to do those would be part of your loop. So your loop would be split between behavioral and functional, and so it would be part of the phone screen. But in theory, nothing's stopping them. So if case studies is something that is functionally relevant to your role, they might include them. And unfortunately, there's nothing that you can do specifically to prepare for them. So hopefully if they do throw a case study at you, your career to date would have prepared you to solve one. Anything you'd add, Gigi?
No, you're absolutely right. Nothing to add. Let's just pull this up from Joey here. It's more of a statement than a question, but I'll talk to it. So Joey said that he's found using Pari instead of STAR. So I assume what you mean, Joey, is that Pari is a model you prefer to use, which is what? Problem, action, result, improvement, which is fine. The reason why Amazon suggests STAR is because it's a structure. And they know that candidates perform better if they follow a structure. They don't actually care which particular structure you choose to use. They just want to make sure that you use a structure. And they have just alighted on STAR because it was the original one. Now, the reality is they're all exactly the same thing. Whether you call it STAR, Pari, CAR, whichever other ones they are, they all essentially say the same thing. It's the same model, just articulated ever so slightly differently. So trust me, no one's being particularly revolutionary if they come up with a new acronym. They're all the same thing. Tell us the circumstances that you're in and why it matters. Tell us what you did about it. Tell us what the outcome was, and tell us if you learned anything or you would do anything differently next time. Every single one of those models covers those things, albeit they might give it a slightly different name. So Joey, knock yourself out. If Pari works better for you than STAR, go ahead and use it. Amazon will not care. It won't make any difference to them. As long as the answer is structured and clear and covers those elements that I just described, they'll be happy.
Yep.
Joey back in.
Cool. We've got Valeria here. So if I'm applying for a role and I'm in the interviewing process, could I apply to other roles that I also like? Is it convenient? I actually don't know. Gigi, do you know? What I know is that before the interview, for sure, you can apply to more roles. And sometimes you'll have to interview with all of the teams that want to interview with you. And sometimes the teams can sort of collude and split your interview panel and, have someone from one team interview you and someone from the other team interview you to save them time and to save you time. But whether you can keep applying while you're interviewing, I guess there's nothing probably that's stopping you from applying, but whether that will actually what that will do within Amazon's ATS, I have no idea. Gigi, do you have an idea?
Yeah, you can just keep applying. All of these applications are completely independent processes. Now, what sometimes happens is in the back rooms, recruiters spot that you've got multiple applications going and they talk to each other. And to Yevgeny's use of the term collude, they're not really supposed to, because a candidate is supposed to be able to apply for whatever roles they want. And if they are a good candidate for that role, then they should be considered as a good candidate for that role. And any other role that they're applying for is irrelevant. Amazon is very much kind of built on the principle of functioning independently. That's why they're able to move so fast. There's not massive committees where everyone has to agree on everything. And recruiting is meant to follow the same process whereby all of these different recs function independently of each other. Sometimes, and we had an example of this, I think in one of our sessions a couple of weeks ago, Yevgeny, where someone said that their recruiter told them that they weren't allowed to progress with another role because they were interviewing
Yes,
for
I do
this
remember that
role.
one.
That is not true from a policy point of view. So yes, if you are in process with any role, doesn't matter where you are in the process, you are free to apply for other roles if you like that role better. The sticky bit will be is if you get an offer from the role that you like less and you're currently in train with the role that you like more, that's when it starts to get complicated, because they aren't necessarily going to wait around for you to complete the other process to make a decision as to which one of those two you want to undertake. But that's a problem for future you. The answer to your question is yes, you can apply for multiples.
Excellent. All right. Well, I think it's still your turn.
Oh, okay, yes. Okay. From Gabru in the UK. How should I approach tell me about yourself and why join Amazon
We
question?
can't hear you, Gigi. Oh, no, I can hear you. Sorry, I can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yep, all good.
Okay, because I didn't touch anything. I was about to
No,
freak
all good,
out
all
there.
good, all good.
All right. How can you avoid getting the redundant answer because both of these questions are related to each other somehow? Well, my advice is give them the answer that you want to give them. If you want to include and tell me about yourself, why you want to join Amazon, if you've already covered it, a half intelligent interviewer is not then going to ask you, why do you want to join Amazon? Because you've just said it. So I don't think it's necessarily up to you to avoid the redundancy. I think it's up to you to come up with two answers, one for tell me about yourself and one for why do you want to work at Amazon, or why do you want this role, so that you can answer either of those questions should they come up, because you can't be guaranteed that everyone's going to ask you both of those questions. And with a half sensible interviewer, if you've already covered off why tell me about yourself, why that then leads to why you want to work in this role, then let's hope your interviewer is smart enough not to ask you the next question. If they ask you the next question, you can just say, okay, thanks for the question. As I mentioned a second ago when I was telling you about myself, these are the particular reasons why I want to work in this role. By the way, if anyone asks you, why do you want to join company X? They don't just mean, why do you want to join company X? They mean, why do you want this job? And this job, of course, entails company X, but also specifically the work in that particular role and maybe that team as well. Okay, hopefully that covers that off.
I think we've got time for one more.
Oh, look, I anticipated Joey's question. That's customer obsession for you. Anticipating, looking around corners.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. And we have Minka.
Minka!
With us. Shout out.
That was it. So yeah, Minka's saying it was me. My recruiter told me. Another one was out there and told her she couldn't interview. See, Minka, you've stuck in our memories. We haven't and would never forget you.
Let's do this question.
Emmanuel, okay.
Call it a day. Okay, so I was laid off from my last company and I'm on a working visa in the US. If I'm asked the biggest challenge, should I mention it? It is the biggest challenge, but I want to get the job for my skills, not for pity. Well, I guess when they ask you about the biggest challenge, what they mean is challenge in the professional setting in general. And I don't mean to kind of diminish the challenge of and not knowing what's going to happen with you when you're on your H-1B in the US or whatever they're called right now. It's a crazy situation. So I'm sorry it happened to you, for sure. I would say stick to the professional examples, because if you share this one, I guess some folks on the interview panel might have questions. Well, why wouldn't you speak about something from your experience, and get suspicious. But so my guidance would be, even despite the fact that you found yourself in this very difficult situation, and I totally sympathize and sorry that happened to you, I would still keep your stories to the events in the professional side of life. What would your guidance be, Gigi?
It would be exactly the same. I know it is professional in the context of it's a work visa, but the nuance there is it's not a business experience. So I think that's probably the slight nuance, is focus on business activities and challenges in your day-to-day business operations. The other thing I'll say, which is slightly flippant, so do forgive me for it, but just to be clear, no one at Amazon ever gave anybody a job out of pity. Never.
Yep.
So please have no fear that anyone is going to give you the job out of pity, because it's never going to happen. But the broader point is focus on your business experience, not the H1 visa.
Cool.
All right.
I think we're done.
We are. So folks, don't go anywhere, because if you do, you're going to miss out. So let me just quickly throw a banner up here for you. So we wanted to give you this, which is our incredible free, well, that's not the course, but go to the website basically, and a pop-up will appear and chase you everywhere, offering you our free customer obsession course. As I mentioned at the beginning, we offer online courses, fabulous online courses, by the way. We put a lot of work into those, helping you understand everything you need to know to be successful at your Amazon interview. We give this little mini slice of our course away for free. It will talk you through customer obsession. It will help you understand how to get really deep into the leadership principle and understand what they really mean. Each leadership principle has different kind of lenses through which you can look at it. We call them facets. Customer obsession has 4. Other leadership principles have 3, 2. I don't think there are any 5s, but we've created this concept of facets. Customer obsession has 4, so it talks you through those 4 different facets. It helps you understand what the interviewer is likely looking for in your answer, which will really help you build your customer obsession example to make it hit on all of those behaviors that they're looking for. And then there's a little mock interview at the end, me interviewing me. You won't tell the difference, honestly. We don't look anything alike, the 2 versions of me, and it just gives you a little sense of how this can come together in a mock interview. We give it to you for free because basically everyone's going to be asked customer obsession at some point, so we know it's going to be super helpful for pretty much everyone. And also it just gives you a flavor of what we do at Day One Careers and the quality of our insight, as opposed to anything that you'll find free or even paid for actually anywhere else. We're pretty confident we have the best product on the market for helping you nail your Amazon interview. So go get it. It also gives you access to a little community that we have on a platform called Heartbeat. You can find other candidates who are interviewing, maybe get some mock interviews set up with other candidates, ask questions, basically to get a little bit more support for your interview preparation. And on that note, I'm going to go and have my carbonara. I can smell it. I'm starving.
With garlic and mustard?
No garlic. We're not allowed garlic in this house.
You're
Paul's
not allowed garlic.
allergic. I know. We have very bland food. No garlic and no onions. You can only imagine how dull our palate is.
I'm sure it's delicious from Mr. G.
Well, luckily, at least it has bacon in it.
That's the
Saving
chocolate,
grace.
right?
That's bacon. All right. Oh, we're being offered to come and visit in Pocono. I so would. It looks amazing from Google Earth
Yes, it does.
perspective.
It does indeed.
Although I have to check out the gun laws first. I have to be honest with you. I'll look into it.
Why? I hope they allow them.
That's because you're Russian.
Metal.
Right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We will be in the same place, same time next week. So if you have an interview coming up, then we absolutely wish you the very, very best of luck. And yeah, that's it. So everyone take care, folks. And Yevgeny, I'll catch up with you soon.
Take care, guys. Bye.
Take care. Bye.